繰り返されたさよならを聞かせて静かに滲んでく記憶に刻まれた笑い声も
Alright, I feel like there's some explaining to do because I'm taking up Gladiator to rank 5, and his reception so far has been really mixed, but I think he is a good champion overall. Now, here's the thing. I made a video criticizing him a lot, right? And it was a couple days ago. Do I regret making that video? 1000%, because I didn't know enough about the champion to be criticizing him that much. But now that I know the champion more, I think he is genuinely a pretty strong champion. So yeah, I regret making that video for sure, and I want to just have a redo and just look at Gladiator again as a rank 5 6-star champion, not as a rank 3 6-star champion, because there is a massive difference, and some champions really want to have a high rank because of their damage form, and Gladiator is just that champion. Now, here is a quick look at Gladiator yet again. He is an Incinerate and Physical Burst DPS. Those two things are his majority damage output, and his damage output is honestly pretty solid. It seems not that good because of the way it appears, because it's not just a bunch of big yellow numbers or red numbers, but it combines to make for some pretty strong DPS overall. And his utility, I undersold it a ton. He actually has a mountain load of utility, so let's get started here. He has Vigilance, which counters miss. While he has Vigilance, he has True Damage, which is one of the most underrated abilities in the game because it bypasses every single resistance. That is just amazing, right? And additionally, Armor Ups get ability accuracy reduction as well if he is awakened, so keep that in mind. Additionally, he has Power Drain and Burn Immunity, which is always good to have. He has Cold Snap to counter Evade. He has increased buff ability accuracy to counter the likes of Tigra, Domino, you name it. He also has Fight Control with Intimidate and Unblockable. He has access to Unstoppable. He has massive tankiness with his health and his confidence buffs. And yeah, that is just a laundry list of things that he does, and it just makes for an overall pretty solid kit. So Gladiator has a lot more than expected, but now let's see some gameplay of him. So first up, a quick damage test here, and the fight time in this matchup is honestly pretty good. It is a bit unexpected for sure, but he honestly does great here. So let's start up by building up our confidence by just dropping heavy attacks, and here I play a bit risky because why not, right? And we're almost built up already. He built up pretty fast for a ramp up champion, so that's also a pretty nice benefit for him. But here I go back in, drop a heavy attack, do 3 hits into the SP2 to get my physical burst damage, and yeah, some pretty nice numbers there. He drops the SP2, we go in prematurely to get that physical burst damage, then we do it again afterwards. So that is a nice 28,000 damage per special attack. And check that out, man, like, it really does add up for sure. It is a nice chunk of damage output for Gladiator, and it's important because he has so many damage sources that you want to take advantage of all of them. The physical burst on special attacks, the incinerates, the physical burst on retaliation, it all really adds up for him, and it's all really important to manage. And I think it's fun. I think that having multiple damage sources is always a pretty nice time because if one doesn't work, then the others are there to help pick you up. But here I drop the SP1, then I go back in, and this ends the fight in 1 minute and 16 seconds, which is honestly not bad in the slightest. But now let's see some lower health pools. Here's this Venom the Duck with 200,000 health, and Gladiator, like I said, even though he's a ramp up champion, he still ramps up pretty fast, so even lower health pools isn't that big of an issue for him, which is awesome. I love champions that can ramp up but also just do really good in these health pools. For example, there is Photon, but yeah, here almost built up already, which is amazing. You love to see it just building up pretty fast. Here I drop the heavy attack again, go back in, and we can just pause here for a second, wait for the unblockable to return, and then to go back in, drop the SP2 after this heavy attack, and yeah, not too shabby in the slightest. Barely any crits there though, which is unfortunate, so this could have been faster for sure, but still isn't a bad time at all, and it's more realistic as well. So yeah, the physical burst playing a massive role here as well, and that is about 43 seconds. Honestly, I think that 37 seconds is definitely possible for sure, but still not too bad at all. And here we have Rocket Raccoon, and this is just a simple cosmic lane that he takes pretty well. The more buffs you have, the more you're likely to counter auto block, which Gladiator has up to 24 of those, so it's no big deal. He can just get it done pretty fast. Yeah, like check out this damage output already. He hits pretty hard because the confidence gives him an attack rating increase as well, so that's always a nice thing to see. But here I dropped the SP2, we get the bonus damage here. Pretty nice crits of 14,000, then some nice incinerate numbers as well. Physical burst playing a huge role here too. And yeah, the fight is pretty much almost over. Just one more combo into heavy tech and then the SP1, which is really beautiful by the way. His animations are top tier obviously, like the Kabam art team just doesn't miss ever pretty much. So yeah, Gladiator is just another example of that. But now we have this rage fight, and this rage lane is a good showing of his unblockable and just his free openings, because he has a ton of openings with the intimidate and the unblockable, and just yeah, those two things make for some great fight control, right? And additionally, his incinerates bypass rage, which is always good, but his physical burst gets capped by rage, which is annoying obviously, right? But I guess it just works that way. It just caps everything in the game, which is pretty silly in my opinion, but I guess if that's what the intention was, then yeah, it's a pretty annoying node, so good job, Kabam. But here he's unblockable now, which is fine, because check this out. We get the physical burst damage, we go in, we drop a heavy attack, we're now unblockable for the free opening there. And yeah, that is a pretty nice way of just controlling the fight. And here he drops the SP1 again, we get that physical burst damage, we drop the SP2, get the incinerates up, and things are looking pretty good yet again. Here I get the physical burst again, but keep in mind it is capped for some reason. Super annoying, but it's whatever. And I dropped the SP2 again after this, and the fight is now wrapped up. Not too shabby at all. And that was like a minute and something. A minute is decent for an Act 8 fight for sure. Yeah, like a minute and 12 seconds. And here we have this War Machine on this Cosmic Lane, and this one is just a really cheesy time. So, two things of note here. Gladiator counters miss with his vigilance, right? And additionally, he also gets true damage whenever he is awakened with a vigilance. So War Machine's armor up is massive. It has a ton of potency on it. But with Gladiator here, once we get the SP2, the armor up just goes to 0 potency because he ignores all armor and resistances, which is fantastic, right? So here I dropped the SP2, no crits, but that's fine. Still does some pretty good damage regardless. I go back in for the physical burst, and even if he blocks it, we still get the burst damage, which is pretty great. But yeah, like right here, the damage on the non-crits is still really strong because of the true damage. So that just shows how good true damage is, man. It's just way too underrated. But here I drop a heavy attack into the SP2, and this ends the fight, and it is a ton of overkill, but that's fine. And yeah, that was about 51 seconds, not too shabby at all. But Gladiator, I think, had a rough start. He really had a rough start, but as time goes on, I think people will start to appreciate him more. He had a rough beginning because of his origins, right? He is a Summoner's Choice champion, so there was already a ton of pressure on him, and he was also really disliked by the majority of the community because of White Tiger. So it was bound to be a rough start for him, but I think as time progresses, as people get over the whole voting shenanigans, then people start to appreciate this guy a lot more because he's honestly a pretty solid character. He has a good kit, his damage output is pretty fine to be honest, and yeah, just overall, he is a good character. And I was harsh on him too at the beginning, so I can't really say much about that because I was a part of the problem too. But let me know your thoughts on Gladiator, and yeah, that's about it for me.